Welcome to Into the Woods, a journey with the tarot. Here, we wander together into the woods to explore ourselves, the world around us, and the mysteries and joys of life through the tarot. I'm your host, Mari, a professional tarot reader and a musician. Grab your deck, and off we go. Welcome back to Into the Woods. For today's episode, instead of looking at a specific card, we're going to talk about an extremely important question. And that question is, does the tarot really answer your questions? Now, I'm just going to come out and say it. I firmly believe that we should not give all our power away to a deck of cards. We should not ask the tarot to tell us what to do or what will happen. As magical and wonderful as the tarot may be, in the end, we have to believe that we as a human have more power than some cards that we maybe bought at Barnes & Noble. And if we don't believe that, and we go in thinking the cards are telling us what to do, then we really set ourselves up for more anxiety, which is the opposite result of what we hope for when we work with the tarot. We go in hoping for answers, for more clarity, for help, but sometimes what we're really doing is trying to, as Mary Kay Greer puts it, escape the anxiety of risk. Escape the anxiety of risk. We are afraid of making the wrong decisions. We want to put the responsibility off onto somebody else or something else, or just chalk it up to fate. Sometimes if things have been super challenging, we may even be so much in like a victim mindset that we feel like everything is happening to us and that we don't have any power. And we're just hoping the cards don't say something terrible. Maybe even deep down, we're actually hoping the cards do say something terrible just to confirm our worst fears. So we really don't want to give the cards that much power. They are an incredible tool. There is magic in the tool as well, which I'm going to talk about later. But the truth is that the power and the wisdom and the messages come from us. The artwork, the symbols, the archetypes represented in the cards help to ignite our imaginations. They get us out of logical thinking and into a more creative and intuitive process. Just by going to a deck of cards with artwork for answers, we're sort of going away from logical processes, which are so emphasized in today's culture, right? Everything needs to be logical, math, science, you have to see it to believe it, that kind of thing. So by going to the tarot for guidance and for self-examination, we're already kind of saying fuck you to that kind of thinking, which is one thing I love about it. And we're sort of opening ourselves up to a little bit more of an irrational process, a magical process, an intuitive process. And a lot of times intuitive information and logical information conflict. For example, let's say you have a job opportunity. This happened to me as a personal example. Everything about it on paper is perfect. Everything about it on paper is like a dream, but there's a feeling inside that it's not quite right, that it's not going to be fulfilling. There's just some part of you that's resisting it, a little twinge in your chest, in your heart, a knowing. It doesn't make any sense, right? But at least in my experience, I realized after, of course, following logic, that my intuition was actually right. And even though it looked perfect, like a dream opportunity, this particular job didn't end up working out for me. It wasn't a terrible experience or anything, but just it wasn't aligned with my soul, right? It didn't bring me happiness and bring me down the direction I wanted to go in. So, looking back, my intuition was 100% right. And like, why? It's not logical at all. And that, of course, is the beauty and the challenge of trusting and following our intuition. And I wasn't working with a tarot at the time I was considering this job opportunity, but I feel like if I did, I may have grappled a little bit more with like what was holding me back and maybe considered that more seriously. I don't at all regret what happened or the path that I took because it's just part of the journey, but it is lovely to have this tool now that helps me trust my intuition more. It helps me access my intuition more. And it can do that for all of us. You don't need to be a professional reader. I'm going to bring in another quote from Mary Kay Greer. This is from her book, Tarot for Yourself, which is a wonderful book. I'm working through it right now. And she says, "It is the clarity and perceptiveness with which you view the events around you that heightens self-awareness and personal growth. And this is where oracular information will help you." So essentially, the tarot is creating more windows through which you can see into a situation, more angles from which you can view it, and that gives you more power to make aligned decisions, right? So the key is that it gives you more power. It doesn't take your power away or tell you what's going to happen. It gives you more power to make decisions. So in response to the question of this episode, does the tarot really answer your questions? I would have to say no. Life is just too complicated and we have free will. What it does do is heighten our awareness, wake up our intuition. This leads to more clarity, and more clarity leads to you making more empowered and aligned decisions. A lot of times working with the tarot will actually bring up more questions, different ones than the ones you came in with. The cards redirect your focus to the unconscious behaviors behind the issue, allowing you to dive deeper and potentially resolve them. So let's demonstrate this through an example. If you're just starting out with the tarot, using it for yourself, I think it's really easy to fall into this trap of like giving all the power to the tarot cards by accident. So for example, let's say I'm asking about love life. I'm seeing somebody new, starting out on a new relationship, and I'm looking for insight into how it's going to go, maybe just a read on the relationships, and I pull the 10 of Swords. Right, 10 of Swords is an image of a person lying dead on the ground with 10 swords in their back. It's like one of the most brutal images in the tarot. That must be a really bad sign, right? The cards are warning me it's a no. In one of the first tarot books I got, I really didn't know anything about the tarot yet. The main quote for the 10 of Swords is, "This is the end. We've hit rock bottom." End quote. So you may think, wow, this relationship must end really badly. Maybe with a sword in my back. Maybe it's going to take me to rock bottom. And now I'm really scared to commit or even continue at all, even though I was feeling excited or pretty good about it. In this example, what's happened? First of all, the tarot has completely changed your attitude on the relationship. You've given it so much power, it took you from feeling maybe excited to scared. And basically, you've let the tarot determine the outcome of the relationship no matter what you do. So it's like no matter what action you take, it's going to end in the 10 of Swords, which is not good. So there's literally nothing you can do, right? There's no way you can change the outcome. So again, like I said in the beginning, this is like a dangerous way to work with the tarot. It's an easy way to just end up with more anxiety. So instead, let's analyze this card from a few different angles that will help bring up some information, some behaviors into our awareness and see how that might relate to being in a new relationship. So first of all the 10s are indeed about endings or the culmination of something. The Swords suit is all about mental activity, logic, communication, and thoughts. So if I were looking for insight about a new relationship, I would be thinking about what thought patterns am I just absolutely done with when it comes to relationships. For example, maybe I've been a chronic fixer, right? I think I can fix everyone. That's my job. I take on projects as relationships and I just try to help them, because I'm empathic, I'm a bleeding heart, and I'm just so exhausted from that. I don't know if you could tell, but that's my history. It's just totally wiped me out. I'm just done. So now getting this card doesn't mean that this is going to happen again. It means that behavior is something I need to be conscious of going into this new relationship so that I can say goodbye to that harmful cycle. Okay, another view. Maybe in the past, bad communication was the sword in my back, and I'm just absolutely done with it. So that card coming up in the beginning of the relationship is actually a call to reflect on what kinds of thought patterns, communication issues, etc., that you don't want to bring into the new relationship. And having a better awareness of that allows you to set clear boundaries in this new relationship right at the beginning. You can determine what kinds of things are red flags that would make you not continue the relationship, and just be aware of things like that. I actually think this card is amazing to get at the start of a new relationship because it means you're really wrapping up some old bullshit and ready to level up and take a big leap into a higher vibration. So I feel like the 10 of Swords would be actually a really good omen because it's like, that the old stuff is done. It's dead. I'm not picking it up again. I'm ready to move onward and upward. I wanted to share a story now of when I first was starting with the tarot and got absolutely freaked out. I think like all of us who are into the tarot have maybe had that experience. So I just thought I would share mine to kind of reiterate that this is not the way to use the tarot. So I remember just trying to learn the cards. I was pulling some daily cards just to get information for the day. So this wasn't like a specific question. And I pulled the 9 of Swords. In the 9 of Swords, we see a person sitting up in bed with their head in their hands, 9 swords into the wall in front of them, and they're just obviously crying in complete distress. I mean, it looks terrible. And again, I'm going to refer to this book that I got early on. The kind of main quote next to the picture for 9 of Swords is, "My worst fears seem to be coming true." Oh my God. I absolutely freaked out. I was like, what the fuck is going to happen today? Like, is it just going to be, is somebody going to die? Like it gave me chills. I got really scared. I was so scared. I did the thing where I was going to pull another card. I was like, that can't be what's happening today. It's like, everything's great in life. What do you mean? I shuffled the deck. You know what's coming. Pulled a card, and it was the 9 of fucking Swords again. And now that just spooked me so hard. Like, what? How could that just have come up twice? Like, what are the chances of that? And that just scared me even more. Now, of course, I went about the day and nothing terrible happened. In my further development and study of the tarot, right, I learned more about how the 9 of Swords is really about repetitive thinking that's kind of putting you into like a doom cycle, just where you getting super caught up in your thoughts and they're leading you down a hole. So it's really not literal, but I just wanted to share that story in case that's something like that has happened to any of you. It's really eerie what cards appear sometimes. And that situation was just like a prime example of kind of the spooky magic of the tarot. Like, how did I get the 9 of Swords twice? It's so crazy. So yeah, that's my scary story with the tarot. So I want to address one more question. And this came up when I was doing a group reading at like a bachelorette party. None of them had any experience getting the tarot reading, and they were super curious about it. It was really fun. And they were asking me like, what's the deal? Like, do we just make meaning of the cards that come up so that any card that comes up feels really personally relevant? That's a great question. And my answer is yes. I think that's really true. I don't think it matters what cards come up. I think that any card can help us view something from different angles and come up with more helpful information. But I can't deny the magic of the tarot. Like how I was explaining with the last story, what are the chances that the 9 of Swords came up twice? And it just often seems the case that the cards that come up are just too accurate to be coincidental. So there is an element of magic in the tarot that is just undeniable, I think, as someone who's done a lot of readings at this point. Let me give you some fun examples of magic moments with the tarot. I did a reading for my husband this week. It's the first time I've ever done a reading for him. He's definitely a skeptic, but as a skeptic, I'd say he's still fairly open-minded and just like fascinated by different things in the world. So he was open to doing a reading and was excited. So I was using the Ethereal Visions deck. And in that deck, there's 2 additional cards that aren't in the traditional tarot. One of them is the Artist. And so my husband is an artist. That's what he does for a living. And of course, I pulled the Artist card. Not only is he an artist for a living, but this has been a primary struggle in his current situation right now. He's kind of missing feeling more like an artist, which is a problem that a lot of us have who are artists for work, right? It starts feeling like work, or we start to like sacrifice the authenticity of our art for the production reasons. And that's kind of been a struggle for him. Also, he's a dad, works full time, and it's just really hard to find the time for like art for joy. That card came up and a couple others. And at the end of the reading, he said to me, this is so great because he's, like I said, a total skeptic. He was like, this is creepy, the cards that came up. Yeah, it's just too much to be coincidental. It's just too much. Okay, so that's a fun story. I have another one that's sort of more about me personally. I think it has to do a little bit with my intuition, but I was doing a bunch of free practice readings. I had a couple in 1 week, and this like weird pattern started to arise where the day before a reading, I would become like weirdly obsessed with one card. And even though I already knew the meanings for all the cards, I would sort of like do extra reading on it. I would maybe do some journaling exercises on it or like active imagination, and typically like a major arcana card in this case. And the next day, that card would be a prominent placement in the reading. So this happened for the Fool. I was doing a reading for a friend. The Fool came up really prominent in her reading, and I had like just done all this reading and exploration with the Fool. And then the next reading was with a friend of mine who is currently on a journey to work as a psychic medium. And the day before her reading, I started reading up more about High Priestess. And like, I don't even think I knew I had a reading the next day. Like, I hadn't even looked at the schedule. I went on a walk and had like an imaginary discussion with the High Priestess. And then boom, the High Priestess came up in her reading. And before the reading, I was thinking, you know what? That'd be weird if the High Priestess came up, because that thing just happened with the Fool. It's so crazy. And then like, boom, it's like second card that came down. I was like, oh my gosh, totally freaked me out. And then literally the same thing happened with the Chariot. 3 in a row. I would get like a random stroke of like, oh my God, I need to know more about this card. I'm going to do a bunch of exercises and reading. And then boom, it's a prominent placement. And so convenient. I know all about it. I know all about it, and in more depth than I used to. So also some weird magic going on with the tarot there. Now we're going to pull out our decks and pull some cards. And instead of doing a spread like I did in the past 2 episodes, this time we're going to explore how the cards might inspire questions that we can turn back on us, right? So instead of thinking of the tarot card as having the answer, we're going to flip it and say, okay, what questions is this card asking me? I'm going to pull 3 different cards and talk through what questions I think this card might be asking. And you can do the same with your own deck. So you can pull cards with me. And if you feel unclear or not sure, send me an email or message me on Instagram, and feel free to ask me what you think that card would ask, and we can have a conversation about it. Okay, so very interesting. I've pulled 3 major arcana here. The first one I pulled is the Chariot. I'm not going to go super deep into meanings here. We could do, a whole episode on the Chariot, but some questions this one might inspire is, where am I prioritizing outward success or like ego instead of soul level success or soul fulfillment? Another question might be just to reflect on areas of life that feel like I've made a lot of progress, had a lot of success in, taking a moment to do some gratitude or just reflecting on how those things made me feel, accomplishments, things like that, just recognizing them. A lot of times we don't take the time to slow down and recognize and appreciate ourselves and our accomplishments and the things that we've done. I'm like perfect example of this. I accomplish something and then it's like, great, cool, that's as I expected, on to the next. So just giving yourself some recognition for your worldly success, for some of your top accomplishments so far in life. Yeah, so I feel pretty complete with that one. I think those are the 2 key elements here. With this card, to me, it's a lot about like worldly success, but it is about that balance between, okay, are we going too far in the realm of worldly success and ego development and not really getting that soul level fulfillment? So I think those 2 questions are good for that one. Next card I got was Judgment. Okay, so Judgment is the second to last card in the major arcana. It's the step right before the sense of like completion and integration and embodiment of, whatever journey you were on. So this step is really about like assessing where we are, what's serving us, what we want to leave behind, what we want to take with us. So I would be asking questions like, what kinds of behaviors, attitudes, mindsets am I ready to let go of? What kinds of habits and mindsets are holding me back from rising up, right? From reaching a new level, a new vibration. And on a less epic judgment level, maybe this card's asking, okay, where are we judging too harshly, whether that's ourselves or others? Lastly, I got the High Priestess. Could come up with a lot of questions for this one, but I would say questions would be, am I in touch with my intuition? What does it feel like to trust my intuition? Have I spent enough time in silence and quiet? This card can also be a tip to connect with some feminine goddess energy. So if there is a deity or some kind of feminine spiritual energy you like to work with, this might be an opportunity to ask them, right? The card might prompt you to ask your guidance system, what wisdom would you like to share with me right now? Okay, so that's the process. It's pretty simple. There's no right answers. You could have come up with completely different questions than I came up with. It depends on what's going on in your life. Try this practice of letting the cards come up with questions for you. And these are things you can just think about, ponder on, or journal on, right? I actually like to get my pen and my paper out and write out the answers to these questions and reflect for a while. So great way to come up with journal prompts. Pull a random card, write 1 or 2 prompts for yourself, sit down and do some journaling. Such an awesome tool for that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Into the Woods. If you have specific cards, specific questions, things you'd like to be discussed or answered on this podcast, please feel free to reach out on social media. I'm on Instagram at Mari of the Woods. That's Mari. And you can also email info@mariofthewoods.com. Happy to take some questions and consider them for podcast episodes. If you tried out the questions, would love to hear how it went as well. So until next week, I hope you are enjoying your journey.